Hi, welcome once again for another episode of my video lesson in English. I am Teacher Arlene, your English teacher. Do you love observing surroundings? Are you curious? So, did you try to look around? Do you see different billboards outside the city? How about in your social media like Facebook, YouTube, or when you are attending your classes and the teacher is showing your topics through his or her presentations? If yes, then that's what we are going to talk about on this video episode. So, come and join me. English 6, Quarter 1, Week 5. At the end of the lesson, you are going to define visual elements and identify the different kinds of visual elements. So before we go through our lesson, let's have a review first. You are going to identify if the images are non-projected or projected visual media. The first image is this is. So this is an infographics. How to disinfect your mask, a step-by-step guide. So when we say infographics, it is an example of non-projected visual media. Another image. This is an overhead projector. An overhead projector is an example of projected visual media. Another, we have cartoons. When we say cartoons or editorial cartoons, usually you can find that in a newspaper. Alright, when we say cartoons, it is an example of non-projected visual media. Another, this is a visual presentation because while having the meeting in a certain business or company, they use PowerPoint presentations to let the others see their report. So this is an example of projected visual media. Next, this is a poster about the tips for spotting fake news. When we say poster, it is an example of non-projected visual media. And last, this is what they use during the old cinemas, where they use negative films, or we call it film strip. Alright, so when we say film strip, it is an example of projected visual media. Alright, so when we say again, visual media is generally pertain to television, movies, photography, painting, print, advertisements, and other forms of media that involve the sense of sight. So everything we see or everywhere we look around, those are what we call visual media. And visual media has two types. And this is the first one. We have non-projected visual media, which are infographics, cartoons, photograph, and poster. And the second type, we have projected visual media. And these are film strip, overhead projector, and visual presentation. Now let's go to our lesson, which is visual elements. So when we say visual elements, it is any characteristic that we can see including line, shape, direction, size, texture, color, and value. Now, what are the different visual elements? So the first one we have line. And line is the foundation of all drawing. Yes, because it started with the line when you are going to draw something. And a line can be used in many different ways. And it can be also used to suggest shape and pattern, form, structure, growth, depth, distance, rhythm, movement, and range of emotion. So those are the uses of lines. So these are the examples of lines. The first kind of line, we have curved lines. So when we say curved lines, it suggests comfort and ease. Another kind of line, we have horizontal lines. So when we say horizontal, it suggests distance and calm. Another, we have vertical lines. And vertical lines suggest height and strength. And last kind of line, we have jagged lines. When we say jagged lines, it suggests excitement, destruction, and unease. So that's all the kinds of lines. Now let's move on to another visual element. We have symbols. When we say symbols, these are representations of concepts or ideas. It takes the form of words, sounds, gestures, ideas, or visual images. It is used to convey other ideas and beliefs. So when we say symbols, we can see it everywhere. They are using symbols to convey lengthy words. Alright, so now these are the examples of symbols. So I know some of these are familiar now with you. So you know what are the meaning of these symbols whenever you will see that in the highway or in a pedestrian. So you will know what is the meaning of those symbols. Alright? Oh, now let's move on to another visual element. So we have color. So when we say color, it is the visual element that has the strongest effect on our emotions. So we use color to create the mood or atmosphere of an artwork. And depending on the context, it can have symbolic associative meanings. So when we say color, it also has meanings that it used to represent. So here are some of it. So we have red color. It represents action, passion, masculinity, emotion, and danger. So that's the meaning of red color. When we say yellow color, it represents a warm color, cheerful, joy, lightheartedness. So whenever we see yellow color, we will feel happiness. Another, we have blue color. Blue color represents coolness, calmness, wisdom, and new points. So that's the representation of blue color. While black color, it represents evil, mostly, and mysterious power and fear. So those are the representation of black color. And another, we have white color. It represents unity, innocence, timelessness, and mystical. And that is the representation of white color. So those are the meanings of different colors. Now let's go to another visual element, which is gaze. So when we talk about gaze, it refers to where the figure in the image is looking. It implies looking at someone through our formed set of ideologies, beliefs, and values. These can include our accepted norms, prejudices, and value judgments. Okay, so when we see gaze, it is the way the image or how the image is looking through something. Alright? So, this is an example of gaze. So, the dog's gaze creates an offer, encouraging us to look at the puppy. The dog might tells us that, please look at my puppies, just like that. And another visual element, we have framing. When we say framing, it is by deciding where the edges of the image will be. The photograph determines what you will and will not see, whether the subject will fill the frame and appear close up or will be seen at a distance as a part of a larger context. So when we say framing, it is where the image focused on. Alright, so let's have an example here. The picture A, it looks like the baby is reading the newspaper, because that is what is just the picture focused on. Its hand is holding the corner of the page. So the judgment here, perhaps ready to turn the page. But take note, let's consider what we don't see. So this is what we don't see in picture B. If you try to look at the bigger picture, we can see the baby is actually sitting on someone's lap. Seeing what's outside the frame changes the viewer's understanding. So that is about framing. So when you are taking a photograph, so you will going to practice framing. So what are you focusing on when you are trying to capture an image? And what are you trying to tell to the viewers or the people who might look at the picture? What will be their judgment? So that is about framing. Okay, so that's about the different visual elements. Now, to test if you already understand our lesson, so we will be having an activity time. So what you are going to do is you have to identify each visual media elements. You have to tell if the picture is line, colors, gaze, framing, or symbols. Are you ready? Okay, here is the first image. So, what visual element is this? Alright, this visual element is gaze. Now let's go to another image. What visual element is this? Alright, as you can see, all the different kinds of lines is there in this form of face. So therefore, this is line. Okay, now let's move on to another image. This one. What visual element is this? Yes, this visual element is gaze, because the picture or the image is looking at her child. So it used to tell something to the one who is looking at the picture. Alright, so next image. How about this? Alright, this is framing, because as you can see, when you are taking a photograph, you're trying to look at the image. So where the image focused on. So that's it. That is framing. Now let's go to another picture. How about this? Yes, of course. This is color. Okay, now let's go to another image. How about this? Alright, we are all familiar with this. So we know what is the meaning of this symbol. Alright, so the answer is symbols. Okay, now let's go to another. How about this? Again, it is where the image focused on. So this is framing. Alright. And last, yes, this is symbol, and this image, it means do not enter. Right. So those are the visual elements. Alright. So now let's go to the summary of our lesson. So what did we get? We found out that visual element is any characteristic that we can see, including line, shape, direction, size, texture, color, and value. And the first visual element, we have line. It is the foundation of all drawing. Line can be used in many different ways. It can be used to suggest shape, pattern, form, picture, growth, depth, distance, rhythm, movement, and a range of emotions. So these are the different kinds of lines. We have curved lines, horizontal lines, vertical lines, and jagged lines. And another visual elements, we have symbols. Symbols are representation of concepts or ideas. It takes the form of words, sounds, gestures, ideas, or visual images. It is used to convey other ideas and belief. And the third visual elements, we have color. It is the visual element that has the strongest effect on our emotions. We use color to create the mood or atmosphere of an artwork. Depending on the context, it can have symbolic associative meanings. And colors has its own representation. We have red color. It represents action, passion, masculinity, emotion, and danger. Yellow represents warm color, cheerful, joy, lightheartedness. Blue represents coolness, calmness, wisdom, new point. Black represents evil, mysterious, power, and fear. And white represents purity, innocence, timelessness, and mystical. Another visual elements, we have gaze. Refers to where the figure in the image is looking. It implies looking at someone through our formed set of ideologies, beliefs, and values. This can include our accepted norms, prejudices, and value judgments. Another visual elements, we have framing. By deciding where the edges of the image will be, the photograph determines what you will and will not see, whether the subject will fill the frame and appear close up or will be seen at a distance as a part of a larger context. Well, that's the end of our lesson about visual media, types of visual media, and visual elements. So always remember, visual media can see anywhere and everywhere by the use of our sense of sight. So, in English class, always remember, we learn together, we rise together. This is your English teacher once again, Teacher Arlene. Thank you for watching. Bye.